So I don't know if y'all knew this, but there is a total of 13 matchups this week in Week 7 fantasy football. So that means I had to make some very tough decisions in my top 12 fantasy football defense rankings this week. So it's time for one of my favorite videos of the week, my fantasy football defense rankings for Week 7 fantasy football. We're going through the top 12 out of 13 total matchups today. So obviously, tough decisions have to be made. But first, guys, we have to give away another FFN white hat this week. For a chance to win this hat, you need to go down there, drop a like on the video, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Those are the precursors. And go down there and put in a comment. Give me your best prediction of the week. Give me your hottest take. Doesn't matter. Go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and put a comment down there, and you will have a chance to win this free FFN white hat. So let's go ahead and just dive into the rankings right now. So first up here, I've got the Bills taking on New England Patriots. In New England, doesn't matter. The Buffalo Bills have been a really, really good fantasy football defense this year. So you can see the numbers on the screen. And they've played real opponents during that time. They shut down the Miami Dolphins' explosive offense. They played the Jacksonville Jaguars very tough. Like, the Buffalo Bills have been a very, very tough defense to play. Sacks galore, they're getting interceptions, they're getting forced fumbles. They've done very well. And obviously, they're getting a great matchup. New England is one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. There's no question about it. One of the best coaches I saw growing up, Bill Belichick, now runs a terrible football team. So it doesn't matter if it's in Buffalo. It doesn't matter if it's in New England. They're going to be terrible against the Bills. It's just that simple. Number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week taking on the Atlanta Falcons at home. So I want to start this off by saying something. So every single week, at the end of each defense ranking video, I give you guys a bonus defense to add for the following week. And I got a couple comments this week about the Buccaneers screwing them over this past week. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but I did not say to start the Buccaneers defense over the Detroit Lions. When the Buccaneers defense were my bonus defense pickup of the week last week, I meant for this week. That's what the bonus defense picks are for the following week. If you have the roster space and if you are able to put them on your bench to stash them for the next week, that's what the bonus defenses are for. So I just wanted to say that because the Buccaneers defense obviously played the Lions last week and did not do very well. This week's a different story, and the reason I said this week is because Atlanta's not a very good team, guys. They're just not. And the Buccaneers defense, they're very good. They're getting over a pick a game. They're getting basically 1 fumble recovery per game. They're getting 3 sacks per game, 9.6 fantasy points per game. The Buccaneers defense is going to do bad things to Desmond Ridder. That's what's going to happen. So I love the Buccaneers defense this week. They're here at number 2. The Seahawks defense is at number 3 here. And the Seahawks are taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of news with the Cardinals, right? Kyler Murray, he's being designated to return. His practice window is officially open at this point. So I don't expect him to come back this particular week. I think that would be pretty aggressive. But the Seahawks this week are going to be great. And really one of the reasons for it is because the Arizona Cardinals have been saying this for weeks now. They're a type of team that came out and was way more competitive, way more feisty than I thought they would be. Well, the problem with that is that they're just not talented enough to win games. And of course, they're 1-5. So their season is basically over at this point. And so you're not going to see a lot more effort. And that effort is going to start to go down pretty significantly. They've already got killed last week by the Rams, and they got killed the other week by the Bengals. I think the Seahawks are going to just bludgeon them. I mean, the Seahawks defense is turnover happy, they're playmakers, and they've got lots of youth. I like the Seahawks defense this week against the Cardinals. The Green Bay Packers this week, and they're not a defense that I love, but they're taking on the Denver Broncos. So as far as messes go as NFL teams, there's a couple of them that are relatively in the same tier. We've got the Giants, we've got the Patriots, and the Denver Broncos are right there with them. They're an utter disaster. So Green Bay's got just one of the greatest matchups of the week. Russell Wilson's coming off one of the worst games of his entire career, and Green Bay can get after you. And Denver's O-line is a mess. This one's a pretty easy no-brainer to me. This is all matchup based right here. Number 5, The Washington Commanders also very, very matchup based. You can see what they're doing on the screen. Like, they're not really turnover friendly. They're not getting many fantasy points per game because they give up a lot of points per week, but they do get after your quarterback, and that's one of the Giants' weaknesses. They cannot protect theirs. I don't care if it's Tyrod Taylor. I don't care if it's Daniel Jones. Whoever they roll out there at quarterback this week, they're getting pressured by Chase Young. They're getting pressured by Sweat. It's not going to be good. Jonathan Allen will be after him. It's just bad situation for the Giants right now. They're one of just the punching bags of the NFL right now. And so basically whoever plays the Giants at this point, you're going to want a shot at that defense for sure. The Commanders are down here at 5 because they're just not a very good defense themselves. But with that said, the matchup is tremendous. The Cleveland Browns are here at number 6, and they're taking on the Indianapolis Colts without Anthony Richardson. Obviously, we saw what the Colts did last week with Gardner Minshew. It was gross. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are actually starting to hit their stride a little bit. So that's kind of tough to just come out and say they're just a terrible team. I have tooted the Indianapolis Colts horn all season long. I think their head coach is a genius. I think he's a stud NFL head coach. Shane Steichen, great player caller for the Eagles, helped develop Jalen Hurts into who he is. So I think he was going to work really well with Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew's not that talented, and that's the ultimate problem here. They've got problems because they just don't have the offensive upside. Cleveland, they're a great defense. Not only, like, they're a great NFL defense, but when you can see the numbers on the screen, they're not as good at fantasy football as you may think. They're actually the defense 18 on the season so far in fantasy. So it kind of evens out here a little bit. The matchup is really good for the Browns, but at the same time, there's just not many turnovers attached to them, and there's just not that many plays being made. So I think the Browns are a good defense this week. I just wouldn't jump up and down with joy if I had them. The San Francisco 49ers this week, they're taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Let me just tell you this. I think the 49ers are going to come out here and just abuse the Minnesota Vikings. I said this on a live stream that I did on Wednesday night. And what I said was that the Minnesota Vikings are low-key tanking right now. And I don't it's pretty obvious to me because what they've done, they're trying to trade Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins did not have a no-trade clause, he'd be gone already. But Kirk Cousins essentially has the right to say no to any trade that they offer, any trade they present. Justin Jefferson would not surprise me if he does not come back if he's not healthy. They're 2-4 already. Their season is basically almost over, and it will be after this week. And they're also trying to trade their best pass rusher, who, by the way, leading the NFL in sacks with 8, Danielle Hunter. The Minnesota Vikings are low-key tanking. And the 49ers, I think, are just going to come in really pissed off losing to the Browns. This is a narrative game for me that I really like. I like the story here. I think the 49ers defense is going to get after Kirk Cousins this week. Number 8, making their second week in a row on this list is the Raiders defense because they're taking on the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Listen, they wouldn't be on here if it was Justin Fields. I'll be honest with you. And it's not because Justin Fields is a great quarterback. We all know what he's done at a lot of points in the season. But Tyson Bagent last week, he was not very good. And I really don't see how it gets better because it's not like the Bears have a great offensive line. It's not like they've got a great rushing game to balance it out. It's not like they have a great defense to help out. The Raiders, to me, they're on here 2 weeks in a row because of matchup and because Max Crosby does get after the quarterback. And last week, I was right about my Raiders play against the Patriots. I have a feeling we're going to go through a very similar type of situation this week, going up against the Justin Fields-less Chicago Bears. New Orleans Saints at number 9, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars in New Orleans tonight. So here's the thing. We're assuming that Trevor Lawrence is playing. If Trevor Lawrence plays, they're down here at number 9. And the reason is because, one, their defense is great. You can see what they're doing on the screen. They're averaging basically 1.5 turnovers per game. They've been a great defense. Number 2 is because if Trevor Lawrence plays, I think he comes in at like 70%. He's clearly not going to be fully healthy. So that's something that they will be able to take advantage of. But if he doesn't play, New Orleans goes up to like top 4. They're going to go up to all the way to number 4, pushing everybody else down. So it really is going to be completely dependent on what happens with Trevor Lawrence. But I do think that even if Trevor Lawrence plays, regardless of what happens at the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback position, the New Orleans Saints are here inside the top 10. Detroit Lions at number 10, taking on the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Listen, remember when I said at the top that there was only 13 matchups and I had to choose wisely? Well, this is one of those times. So obviously, the Detroit Lions defense has been great. The Baltimore Ravens defense, they've been great. The Detroit Lions have played significant opponents during this season. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They lost to the Seattle Seahawks, was their only loss this season. They beat the daylights out of the Green Bay Packers. They just beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a way more improved team than I thought they would be. Detroit's got a real defense. And Lamar Jackson, he has not been that great. The Ravens offense overall, I think is going to struggle against the Detroit Lions. Now, I'm not confident playing the Detroit Lions defense. That's why they're down here at number 10 in only 13 matchups. But I do think that in this type of week, in this type of game environment, I think the Detroit Lions can be played. The Los Angeles Rams at number 11, they're taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. And listen, you can see the numbers on the screen. They're not a very good defense at all. This is the first week they've been inside my top 12. But the matchup is right. It's really, really there. It's in Los Angeles. The Pittsburgh Steelers' record against West Coast teams when they go to the West Coast is not very good, historically speaking. They don't travel very well to the West Coast. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, their Mickey Mouse offense already, is not going to do well against the Los Angeles Rams. I think there's a good chance that Aaron Donald, this defense, they get after Kenny Pickett in a big way, cause a couple turnovers or two. The Philadelphia Eagles rounding it out against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday night. I know, it's crazy. I'm making an intuition call here in only 13 matchups. The Miami Dolphins are 5-0 against teams with a combined record of 5-25. Either that or 5-24. And they lost to the only winning team they've played this season, which is the Buffalo Bills. The Miami Dolphins are a great offense. There's no getting around it. But when they did play the best team they've played all season, the only team with a record above 500, they got dominated. And they got shut down. They got punched in the mouth and they got dominated. I'm calling an intuition call here and saying that Philadelphia has a chance to do that. They've got a chance to punch the Miami Dolphins in the mouth early and really throw them off their game. Not saying it's going to happen, but the Philadelphia Eagles defense is very strong. The Bills in that Miami game got 4 sacks in that game. They forced a turnover. They forced Tua to throw a pick. Philadelphia's defense, they get around 3.5 sacks per game. And if they can shut down Tyreek Hill or do their best and roll over lots of coverage to him, there's a chance that they could punch the Miami Dolphins in the mouth. Not saying it's confident, but again, remember, there's only 13 matchups this week, so we had to make some tough decisions. And as promised, my bonus defense of the week let me clarify, for you to pick up for next week, if you have the roster space and if you can afford to have a second defense on your bench, I've got the Houston Texans next week, and they're taking on the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. So the Texans are on a bye week this week, which means that they've been dropped. They're about 9% rostered in fantasy football right now. They're going to Carolina next week to take on the Cardinals. The Texans are not only rolling, they're a really good team. They really are. So them taking on the Carolina Panthers, who have a same rookie quarterback, but they have been abysmal this year, I think it's just going to be really bad luck for the Carolina Panthers. I think the Texans defense is one of the best pickups that you can make in advance of next week if you have the roster space. So let me know what you think of the defensive rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered before Week 7 Fantasy Football. And if you want to see the must start and sit running backs for Week 7 Fantasy Football, click on this video right here.